When this man stumbled across a lost baby horse crying out for her mum, he knew he had to do something. What happened next will absolutely melt your heart. It had all started as just a normal day for this small herd of horses. One of the mares was keeping a close watch over her foe, as the group moved along munching on grass and shrubs they found along the way. This little foe was the mare's very first baby, and she was fiercely protective. She did everything she could to make sure her baby stayed happy, healthy and safe from danger, whether from wild animals or people. But on this particular day, something went terribly wrong. The herd had been grazing as usual, but it was getting late in the afternoon, and nightfall was coming fast. It was during this dusky time that the unthinkable happened. The foe had wandered a little too far from her mum, drawn by a particularly tasty-looking shrub. That's when a coyote suddenly appeared. At first it was just one, but then more started slipping out from behind bushes and hills, and they made a beeline for the foe. Their yellow eyes glowed with hunger, locked on what they saw as an easy target. Normally coyotes wouldn't dare go after wild horses, they're too big and powerful. But a young foe alone and small, she was just too tempting. Because she had drifted too far from her mother, the foe suddenly found herself trapped. The coyotes standing between her and safety. Panicking, the little one let out a sharp, high-pitched neigh, trying to call for help. But as soon as she cried out, the coyotes lunged, closing the distance fast, terrified, and knowing she couldn't fight them off, the foe bolted running in the opposite direction of her mum, desperate to get away. It didn't take long for the mare to hear the chaos unfolding. The sound of her baby's cries, and the rush of paws through the grass, snapped her into action. Without hesitation, she charged at the coyotes, fierce and fearless, ready to do whatever it took to protect her baby. She kicked, reared, and whinnied, trying to scare them off, and she managed to drive most of the pack away. But by the time the danger had passed, her foal was already gone lost in the confusion. Having run off in terror, the mare called out again and again, searching the fading light for any sign of her baby. But there was no answer. Heart pounding, she darted around. He knew he had to do something. What happened next will absolutely melt your heart. It had all started as just a normal day for this small herd of horses. One of the mares was keeping a close watch over her foal as the group moved along munching on grass and shrubs they found along the way. This little foal was the mare's very first baby, and she was fiercely protective. She did everything she could to make sure her baby stayed happy, healthy and safe from danger, whether from wild animals or people. But on this particular day, something went terribly wrong. The herd had been grazing as usual, but it was getting late in the afternoon, and nightfall was coming fast. It was during this dusky time that the unthinkable happened. The foal had wandered a little too far from her mum, drawn by a particularly tasty-looking shrub. That's when a coyote suddenly appeared. At first it was just one, but then more started slipping out from behind bushes and hills, and they made a beeline for the foe. Their yellow eyes glowed with hunger, locked on what they saw as an easy target. Normally coyotes wouldn't dare go after wild horses, they're too big and powerful. But a young foal alone and small, she was just too tempting, because she had drifted too far from her mother. The foal suddenly found herself trapped, the coyotes standing between her and safety, panicking. The little one let out a sharp, high-pitched neigh, trying to call for help, but as soon as she cried out, the coyotes lunged, closing the distance fast, terrified, and knowing she couldn't fight them off. The foe bolted running in the opposite direction of her mum, desperate to get away. It didn't take long for the mare to hear the chaos unfolding. The sound of her baby's cries, and the rush of paws through the grass snapped her into action. Without hesitation, she charged at the coyotes, fierce and fearless, ready to do whatever it took to protect her baby. She kicked, reared, and whinnied, trying to scare them off, and she managed to drive most of the pack away. But by the time the danger had passed, her foal was already gone lost in the confusion. Having run off in terror, the mare called out again and again, searching the fading light for any sign of her baby. But there was no answer. Heart pounding, she darted around. She stopped and watched him closely, clearly being cautious. Meanwhile, the little foe suddenly lit up with excitement. She recognized her mum right away and began calling out with all her heart, eager to be close to her mother again. The foe rushed toward the guardrail, overcome with relief at seeing her baby alive. The mare quickly stepped up to the barrier too, reaching out to get as close to her little one as possible. The foe tried her best to jump over the railing to get back to her mum, but she just wasn't able to make it on her own. Even though it was a beautiful moment, seeing the two of them reunited, there was still one big problem. The metal guardrail that stood between them Seeing that their foe needed help, the man knew it was up to him to step in. But things had just gotten trickier with the whole herd now close by. He had to be extra careful after all. The mother horse, like any new mum, would be extremely protective, especially after being separated from her baby for days. The mother horse stayed wary, clearly not ready to let anyone get too close to her baby, even if they meant no harm. And while the foe couldn't jump the metal barrier, that didn't mean the mare couldn't, being much bigger and used to rough terrain. She could easily clear the guardrail if she wanted to, and that could put the man in a very dangerous spot. The only reason she hadn't yet was because she was still unsure about him, and he hadn't made any threatening moves toward her baby. Not really sure what else to do. The man stood back for a moment, watching the foe and her mother as they paced back and forth along opposite sides of the barrier. He knew he couldn't let them stay separated for much longer, so with no better plan, he decided to move toward the foe if the mare had a problem with it. Well, he'd deal with that when it happened. At first, the foe backed away, nervous about the stranger getting closer, but the man didn't hesitate. He knew he had to be quick and brave because second-guessing himself could be risky. As he made his move, the person he had been traveling with, who had stayed safely in the car this whole time, too wary of getting too close, pulled out their phone and started filming the whole thing. They managed to catch the moment the man grabbed the foe, wrapping one arm around her chest and the other under her back legs to support her weight. Somehow he lifted her like a pro, even though he had never done anything like this before. Incredibly, the little foe didn't fight him. It was almost like she knew he was there to help, and she trusted him enough to let him do it. Even her mother seemed to sense it. The mare stepped back from the railing a little, almost as if she was giving the man permission to help her baby. With the foe safely in his arms, the man then began lifting her up and over the metal guardrail. It wasn't easy at first. Her hooves got a little stuck on the railing, but with one more big heave and a careful shuffle forward, he managed to get her over and gently set her down. The reunion that followed was pure magic. The mother and her foe rushed to each other, nuzzling and staying close, full of relief and love. They were finally back together, both safe and unharmed. Watching them, the man couldn't help but feel his heart swell with happiness and the feel desperate to find her little one. As the night settled in, the mare grew more and more frantic, terrified that she might never see her baby again. The next morning, the mare set off again, pushing even farther out. The rest of the herd stayed close to her, all of them helping to look for the missing foal. Since the little one was part of their family, every horse in the group cared just as much about finding her safe and sound. All throughout the day, the mare kept searching, sniffing the ground and following every trail she could pick up. But as the hours dragged on, there was still no sign of her baby. It was starting to feel hopeless, like she might never find her again. Meanwhile, the foal had managed to survive through the night, outrunning the few coyotes that had kept chasing her after the others had been scared away by her mum. But because she was still young, she didn't really know the land yet, or the trails the herd usually followed. She had no idea which way to go to get back home, completely lost. And starting to panic, the little foal began crying out again, hoping her mother would hear her, but there was no answer. Seeing no one was coming, the foal decided to pick a direction and just run, praying it would somehow lead her back to her herd. But as the hours went by, it became clearer that she had chosen the wrong way. When night fell again, she had no choice but to curl up behind some bushes and try to stay hidden, hoping nothing dangerous would find her. Thankfully, the night passed without anything bad happening to either the mare or her foal. As the new day broke, the foal set off once again, still trying to find her way back home. But instead of finding her herd, she stumbled across something completely unfamiliar. Somehow the little horse had ended up at a highway that cut right through the open fields herd usually roamed before she knew it. The foal had wandered past the guardrail and onto the edge of the road. Luckily for her, this highway was a quiet one, with very few cars passing by, which kept her safe from getting hit. But now she was stuck. She couldn't figure out how to get back over the guardrail and off the tarmac. With no better option, the foal started walking along the road, staying close to the side. Every once in a while, she would cry out again, hoping that somehow her mum would hear her and come to the rescue. As the morning stretched into afternoon, a single car made its way down the highway. Inside was this man just heading home. He had chosen to take the scenic route through the fields because the day was sunny and clear, and he thought it would be a nice drive. But as the man was driving, he spotted something strange up ahead on the road. Squinting a little, he realized the shape was moving, and as he got closer, he saw that it was a foal. Being an animal lover, this man knew he couldn't just drive by and leave the young horse there. If another car came speeding along, the little one could get badly hurt or worse. Thinking fast, he pulled over as close as he could, without frightening her, and stepped out of his car. He slowly started making his way toward the foal, but as he got closer, she got nervous and backed away, realizing it would take some time to earn her trust. The man stayed still and gently called out to her, keeping his voice soft and calm. While he stood there, he glanced around hoping to spot the rest of her herd, but there were no other horses in sight, which made him even more concerned. He knew that a young horse alone wouldn't survive long without her mother, and there was no way he could just leave her out there. As the man kept calling softly to the foal, something amazing happened over a small hill. A group of horses came trotting into view. Leading the way was a mare who looked more energized and hopeful than the rest. She hurried straight toward the guardrail, but when she saw the man standing nearby, a deep sense of joy. He had just witnessed something truly special. A powerful reminder of the bond between a mother and her child, and he knew he had played a small but important role in bringing them back together. It was a moment he would carry with him forever. With the foal safely reunited with her herd, the group of horses quickly galloped across the field and away from the highway. The man stood there watching them until they disappeared from view. Then he got back into his car and headed home. Later that day, his friend decided to upload the heartwarming video of the rescue to YouTube. It didn't take long for the clip to go viral. The touching moment seemed to hit home with people from all over the world. After that, the man often returned to the highway and the surrounding fields, hoping to spot the mother horse and her foe again. Luckily, the herd seemed to like staying around that area, so finding them wasn't too hard. From then on, he quietly kept a watchful eye on them. Especially the young foe, he wanted to make sure she stayed safe. Even though he always kept a respectful distance, knowing they were still wild animals and could be dangerous. He sometimes tossed little treats like apples to the foe and her mother. Over the years, he visited less and less, but he was happy to see the foe grow into a strong, beautiful mare, just like her mum. Knowing that she had made it healthy, happy and free, the man felt a sense of peace. He had watched over her when she needed it most, and now she was able to take care of herself. His mission was complete on his last visit to the field. The man sat quietly for a few hours, simply watching the herd graze. As he got up to leave, something incredible happened. The mare, once the lost little foe he had rescued, lifted her head, looked right at him, and let out a soft, gentle neigh. It was like she understood, like she was saying, "Thank you." The man smiled, his eyes misting over with emotion. He never imagined that a wild horse could care for him the way he had cared for her. Reluctantly, he wished the herd well and made his way back to his car. It was a hard goodbye, but he knew it was the right one. The horses belonged to the wild, and even though he had shared a special bond with one, it was better for them to live free. Even though he hasn't been back since, the man feels at peace, knowing the herd is doing well. And he often wonders if the little foe he once saved now has a foe of her own to love and protect. That thought alone made every effort worth it. What an incredible story. It just shows how much good can come from looking out for the animals we share this world with. It leaves your heart a little fuller and your spirit a little lighter. If you've ever had a moment like this with an animal, let me know in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe and share this video to help us spread more heartwarming stories. If you're eager for more, head over to my YouTube channel where you can watch lots of other amazing videos. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.